try to get into that because I think that's really cool, and I think that's what makes Calvin Harris's tracks stand out.
Jay, take it away, man.
Yes. Well, I'm going to explain to you how you can start a track. Mostly how I start my tracks, and I just want to say it's not the way to start a track, but it's how I do it, and maybe it can trigger you creatively to start something cool. I work in FL Studio. Unfortunately, I work on PC, so this is my MacBook where I don't have all the plugins, so I won't be able to go into all my projects. But well, we're going to start a track, so maybe I can start a track. And what I think is very important when starting a track is melody and chords. And I think it's very important to realize that music theory and the way chords are built and the way melodies are built on top of chords are very important for a good melody and thus for a good track. It's the basic of all music, from classical music to what I make to what even like in techno there is a key in a song, the key, the bass note that decides this is the key, and that's where you build your melody around. And I'm going to try to explain it basically. I don't have that much time, we have an hour, so I'm going to try to start something new as well, which, yeah, I don't know how far we get, but we'll see. What I do if I want to start some chords, I take like a basic sounding, I have the sound on my laptop, not on the, wait 1 second. Now we should have sound. It's a very basic synth. So what is a chord? I'm going to try to start very basic because I don't know how far everyone is. Maybe you can raise your hand if you are a producer. And if you released a track on a label already, can you raise your hand? Okay, so, well, the goal is next year you come back and you all have some release, so that would be amazing. So yeah, what is a chord and how did I learn it? I do have a little bit of theoretical background, but I try to, I always explain that I also hear it in my head. So like I don't have to think about what notes I play, but there are certain rules when it comes to notes. If you want to build a chord, it's 3 notes. Let's take the G as a bass note, and let's build a chord. This is 1 note, and now we have 3 notes. And the way I place them is in a G major chord. Why is it major? I don't know, but I always say it sounds happy. And if you want to build this chord in a minor chord, just take that middle note down, and it sounds sad. That's how you can, like minor chords sound sad, that's how you can like start with it. So it's 3 notes, it's a very basic chords, and what you want in a song is you want multiple chords progressing after another. They get a chord progression, and that makes can be the basis. You can start with a melody as well. But what I like to do is build chords and build my melody on top. So I'm going to try to make a very basic chord progression from this this 1 chord. And well, I can show you better. I think that the bass note is like it's the base of every chord. It's the foundation of every chord. And if I make a melody with that, I can build the chord around the bass note. So let's do that. Well, that's my chord progression. It's very exciting. What if I make them all minor chords? Let's see. It's always the same distances between the notes in this piano roll. So it's 2 notes in between, and then 3 notes in between. You have a basic minor chord. So let's try how that sounds. That doesn't sound too good, so maybe I can change some of the chords to major. It's, some notes are phasing a little bit, why it sounds a bit weird on these speakers, but we're good, we're good. So that's my basic chord progression. Like this, you can start a track from this. Well, that's a basic chord, but you can add notes to your chords as well, to your chord structure. You can make different rhythms with the chords and make them more interesting. And I thought it would be fun to show you how I did that in my track Electric Elephants. So I'm going to open the MIDI file I have for Electric Elephants. The basic chords from Electric Elephants. And I know the resolution is not optimal, but here is the bass note. And I can try to move that up so you can see them all together. Where did I get it from? Yeah. Well, then they're going to clash a bit. Well, I'm going to play them. That's basic. That's every chord has 3 notes by the rules that I just explained. So that would be Electric Elephants, very basic. But I think that's a bit boring, and I think I want to make it more interesting. So what I do is I'm going to take the same preset in a different one so I can show you just that note. I added some notes that wouldn't be, you wouldn't expect there in the first place. This is the note. And I have ghost channels turned on in Fruity Loops, which is a function where you can see what the other instrument is playing. So you can see the gray notes now are the basic chords. And like here you can already see, hey, there's less room between them. And that's, you can play around with that, but you got to realize it's all based on music theory. And I happen to hear, hey, that I can use that note and I cannot use that note. It's hard to explain how I know it, I just know. But the cool thing is, and even if you don't hear it, there's music theory to back it up. So you can always go back into theory books or find out about, hey, what key is this? It's a G minor, in this case it's an F sharp minor. What notes can I play in this melody? And it always works. So you can play around with that and get more knowledge about how to build your chords. So sounds weird, but if I add it to this, so if I turn on the first chord as well. And then what I did was I changed these as well. So what you do is you make it more interesting. Of course, this also has a different rhythm, so it's not as basic as the first one. But yeah, you change the feeling of the whole track. So with that knowledge, what we can do, we can try to make these basic ones into more interesting ones. Like, what if we try this note? I think it sounds good. There's a name for this chord. I don't know it because I don't have all the knowledge of the music theory, but I know it's, I know I can use it. And maybe I can just play around with this. I don't have my mouse today, which is normally I work with a mouse and I draw it in a way faster. And also, by all means, you don't have to make your chords more complicated or different. You can use basic chords and build a massive hit, but I just really like hits that have like different chords, and I'm going to show you an example of that after this. So the last one we leave like that, and then we have something cool, and we can maybe build a melody on that. So. But I want to show you, like, because it's a cool example, Calvin Harris slide. If I take the very basic chords of that without the bass note, I think it's on my desktop, yes. So the bass note you would think here starts with an A. And then it goes to a B, like if we use the first rules of the basic chords. And then it goes to a again. And it sounds really boring. Or maybe not boring, but not special. But what Calvin Harris does a lot, he switches around the bass note as well, which you can do. But you have to know what sounds good, and it's all based on music theory again, but it's a little bit more complicated. So starting with that A, and then we go to the G sharp for the bass note, which you wouldn't do that if you only use the basic chord rule. But let's try out how it sounds. And after that we go to C sharp. And you wouldn't necessarily expect that as a bass note there, but then it's a bit slower slide, of course. It's like 110, something like that. I want to change this a bit lower so we have a little bit more actual bass. Maybe we go. So it's way different, and the top chords are still the same. I think he switches to this one. So you change the whole chord by just changing the bass note. Try to get into that because I think that's really cool, and I think that's what makes Calvin Harris's tracks stand out, because it seems very simple, and people always say like, oh, it's just piano and it's just some chords and drums, but this is what makes his tracks special, I think, and you can take your track to the next level. Of course, he uses a piano, and he actually played it or let someone play it. I have this ugly sound. Let's change it up to 128 again. So sound is actually the next part I want to talk about, because you need nice sounds. You want sounds that sound like you. You want to create a signature sound maybe. You want to find out maybe some plugin that you like. And I think a mistake is made when people they think that a sound is like a certain synth or a certain sample is their sound. But what's important to know is that someone's sound is not based on certain instruments, but it's based on the instruments that person likes. So if I like a certain synth, if I choose a certain organ, that will be part of my sound. I have a couple releases, and you can hear it's me, but they all sound way different. So let's, I'm just gonna try to play with the sound and maybe even build a melody on these chords. And this is a new plugin. The resolution is, it's not a new plugin by the way, but I recently started working with this one, Omnisphere. It's really cool for cool sounding sounds. So you can, let's change the chords. Let's use another sound. So I'm gonna try to search for like an organ, something that maybe sounds cool, and change the chords into that. Okay, that's a bit boring. I like this one. It's like sounds pretty real, so I'm going to use this one. What we don't have yet is a melody on top of this, so I'm going to, build a melody. I'm going to try to keep it simple. Normally I'm in my own little space, own little studio, working, and just I can put hours into a melody, and now I'm like in front of you all, so it's pretty new for me. So I'm just going to build something. So yeah, it's I'm just searching for something that sounds good, isn't too difficult maybe. Something like this. So I now have the melody in this same sound, but I want a different sound for the melody. So I just I copy that, and I'm just gonna clone this one, and now I have a second omnisphere, and I'm gonna search for a cool sounding lead synth or maybe a plug, so we can build a break or something. Let me check. Like I said, normally I work with a mouse, and I have a little better resolution for the screen. So I'm like kind of, it's pretty full now. What's the problem right now is that I don't really know what I'm searching for, and I think it's important to know if you're going to start something and I want this kind of sound. I want some kind of organ. Maybe you hear something in your head, but it's easier to search for your sounds when you know what you want. So. That's pretty cool, so let's keep it that. Sound-wise, what I like to do is divide it in your melody, in your main lead sound, your like the chords, the sound of the chords. In this case, I use an organ for that, and a bass sound, and on top of that, you put percussion, or it depends. It all depends also on what kind of track you want to make. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. So if you need some bass, I'm just going to open another one. And because this is not my production laptop anymore, I don't have everything on here because I don't normally work with one synthesizer, but with multiple. So yeah, if you want to do like a bass synth, let's try to find that, and that can be a basic one. Okay, let's take the bass note and let's copy that into the bass synth. basic, but I mean, it's something, so. And I can use this first synth, which I use a lot in my production process as well, because if I filter this one, I'm gonna take it an octave down, just to see what that sounds like. And with the bass. And together with this. Okay, I don't really like the lead sound, but like I said, it's difficult right now to do that, and in like the short time we have, because you can be stuck on like a little sound for ages. It doesn't matter, just yeah, keep searching till you got that one you want. And I also don't like the melody though, so I think I should change it, but I'm gonna keep it for now because of the time, and then maybe I'm gonna change it anyways later, but we'll see. So yeah, percussion. In a break, this would be a bit too empty, maybe. Maybe for the start. Maybe we want something underneath. I have a bunch of sample packs I use. Like if I go in here, this is a bunch of stuff. I like all folders with stuff in it, and I think it's this is probably my most important folder I have. I think it's very important if you're a producer to make when you start, make a folder, and if you're in a project and you think, okay, this project sounds like shit, I'm gonna go and delete it. Don't delete it, first of all. And maybe there's one sound in it you like. Save that sound. Save that preset into a folder on a hard drive or somewhere. And then you can find it again. And you're like, hey, I got some nice lead sounds here. And sometimes you edit presets or you make something yourself. Put it in the folder. And you have a lot to choose from after. And of course, now there's options like Splice, which are amazing. Options, of course, we have Cashmere, which did a really good job with a lot of samples. So if I go into a sample pack and I want some kind of drum loop on this, what you can do is, well, I want some top loops or like something 128. So that's a clap. And then, well, you have your basic stuff, and you want to build it into a drop. But what you can also do, and which I think is really cool, is build sounds out of different songs, things them synths. Use your voice, use percussion, use something you recorded, maybe even on your iPhone. There's cool examples of how Deoro also did some pretty cool stuff from his iPhone recorder. And I'm going to show you by, yeah, the thing is with these things, it's hard to explain it as well. So I'm just going to try to show you. If I, for example, want some vocal thing, and how you can edit that into something that makes it your own. So yeah. Vocal loops or vocals, ethnic. Well, that's a bit too Indian for me. Atmospheric vocals. Well, maybe it works. We can see it's 100 BPM and my track is 128. So in every DAW, wherever you're working, there's a different function for this to change the length and the rhythm, the tempo of a sample. Here you can use, if you go to the sample, right-click time, and you can type, wait, I went too fast maybe, even for myself. Auto-detect, and type in BPM, and then it's 100, so I type in the original BPM, and then it switches to the BPM I'm using in the project, like the 128 here. Well, it sounds not right, but then still, even when the pitch is the same as the original sample, it's not right. So you gotta know again what pitch your track is in. In this case, we know it's G. This sample is A. This sample is cool because it says in which key it is. If you don't know it, you gotta hear it, or you use a piano and you find the note that is the same as the sample, and then you can find it out. So I'm going to change the pitch, 2 notes, so it's a G. It's 2 half notes. But I don't like it. Well, then we're just going to use it's already a G. So I'm going to change this BPM as well, 100, stretch, and I can leave pitch here to 0. Well, I don't like that second part, so I lose only the first part. And, well, what you can do with this vocal, a lot. What can't you do? You can cut it up, you can put it on a channel. Well, I don't have all my effects here as well, but fruity loops, standard effects, you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. Like for instance, if I try some distortion, doesn't sound good, but I do want to EQ it because I want it to pop out more and don't interfere with the bass too much. Cut out the bass. And I want to change it anyways because I think it's too dramatic for our little melody here. So I'm just gonna take the first part. And then the second part. And then just cut it up a little bit so it sounds more interesting. Well, by doing this, I suggest you just play around. And I have built these things also from saxophones, or you can use whatever. And like on my YouTube channel, I go more into detail on what is actually on my channels and how you can make something sound very different. This is a good reverb, Valhalla Room, I really like this one. So I think it can be something. So, well, let's say we have an idea now for a track, maybe. Like this could be the start of the break, and then you can introduce the parts differently. So, for instance, we can just start with this, just to give you an idea. And I could change the bass. I could, because I wanted. And you can go on and make it more complex or make it more simple, because that's also a problem. Sometimes you make it too complex. Well, then you have an idea. What you can do is you can save it, class, Spinnin, and now it's saved. And sometimes you're stuck. And sometimes you need to put it away and go into something new. And then you're left with probably like a lot of you, because you're a lot of you here are producers. You're left with a bunch, like a lot of projects or ideas, and you have no idea what to do with them. And then it's very important, or it depends. It's important, however important you want it to be, to go from that idea to a track. And then, I mean, the creative part is not over, but I always love this part. And then I have the idea, I build a little bit more. I make like a bunch of ideas into one, melodies, chords. And then it's like, okay, what do I want to do now? What kind of track does it need to be if I want to release it? I mean, you can make whatever. That's what I always suggest. Just don't think about releasing too much. But if you want to release on a label, you got to think about what kind of track is it. It is a big room track? Is it a future house track? Is it a techno track? Where do I want to go with the certain projects that I have? Yeah, that's important, because then you need to mold an idea into that, how do you say, into that genre, or make sure you can finish it that way. Yeah, just think about what you want to use it for. So if you want DJs to play your track, like for instance, hey, I want Mike Williams to play this, or you want Tiesto to play this, just, you gotta, either way, you gotta mold your idea into different things. That's like a kind of compromise, because, and that's why I always say, just also make stuff that is just cool and it doesn't have to always need a goal. That's very important, especially for the creativity. Because finishing the song is the hard part, because then you have version 1, and then you send it to a friend or a label, and they're like, yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, you need to change it. You need to change that part. You need to change that part and that part, and oh, basically we're not going to do this one. And then it's like, yeah, what now? I thought it would be cool, because I, of course, have for every track a ton of versions, and to show you like some versions in between, I thought that would be cool. So for a bunch of tracks, I'm going to show you what the original idea was, or maybe what the version 30 was, or what version 2 was, so you can get an idea of how to finish your ideas, and how it can happen, and where ideas can come from. For instance, yeah, you already see it, Bootcamp, but this is where I took the break melody from. That violin melody, this is like a very old project, and that violin melody, I had that laying in that project. So I had a different project with a different drop, and I was like, I need a break. Hey, I have that old project. That's why I say keep your old project, because you're gonna find something in there, a melody or a sound. And I was like, okay, but the new project is in a different key, and here's the musical part as well. So I'm gonna change it to that new key. And for those of you who don't know bootcamp, I'm gonna show the break. And of course it sounds a little bit more mature. And in a different key, and then there's the drop, of course. Pretty cool, but that's not the drop that became bootcamp, because either, I'm not sure how it went, but either I was like, okay, this is not the drop we need, or this label was like that, or my mom didn't like it, or friends said, hey, you need to change it, or so you go into another version. Yeah, it sounds a bit childish, but I knew I liked the idea of that that plug going like that, but it needed to be a different plug. And then after, there's a lot of versions here. I called this version 15,000. It's not really, but probably out of frustration, I was like, I don't know what version it is anymore. And then it turned on to this. So yeah, there you have different ideas coming together in one, and that's why I think this creative part of making ideas is important. And while I might not use the project that we're making today or the melody, I might use that vocal chop or the chords or something. So I have another example. The first version, or one of the first versions of Electric Elephant. There we go. This used to be the intro, and then the break. Melody is there. So this part became the second break. And there's no drop yet. So then we have I think this is the first version I played, but it's one of the more versions, advanced versions, but still not the one. And you can hear that because, and I don't know in this sound system, but the bass is different, and yeah, it's a different feel, and the lead synth. So you can hear the signature lead sound isn't there yet. The bass sound is different. And then a version later where I did change the lead sound. So I was like, I don't know about that, to keep the break melody in the drop, so I changed the whole drop melody. And you keep on working and working, and you're not there yet. And always show your tracks to everyone, and like try to figure out what everyone thinks, because then like you keep pushing yourself, and they keep pushing you to like come back better. come back even better. And of course with this version. With the lead it's the same lead synth as that earlier version, but it's the attack I changed. I think it's somewhere on YouTube by some masterclass I did somewhere else, but I just changed one thing in the lead synth and it became that synth. So I think, yeah, that's important. Keep pushing and you will want to make sure that that track is the best version of that track it can be, but it will never be perfect. I have one of the first version of Wizard with Martin Garrix, because we wanted to make like a follow-up of Era 404. So I don't know if you know that one, but if you know that one, it will sound familiar. And then the break. There we go. And then the drop. And here again, we were like, yeah, it works, it's fun, but it's not there yet. And the label also helped us, and we were together pushing each other like it needs to be better, version after version, and then you finally have the final version, which has like a totally different drop. Of course. Yeah, I have some more. Let me check. Wired with Moti. This is pretty cool because the first one is like pretty old style EDM, to say it like that. So the melody from my track with Moti is already there. It sounds like this if you don't know. And then the drop. We went through that. We went through this. And then we ended up with something. This is not the final version yet, but we ended up with something like this. So yeah, it shows that even if you think you're there, a lot of times you're not, and that's why it's good to talk to other producers and talk to people from labels. And yeah, it's a frustrating time finishing projects. I think that's the thing I hate the most, because you're going into the details and then you're like, okay, that bass doesn't come out enough yet. I need to change that, or. It's pretty frustrating. Spotless is pretty funny because the first version is very different. Sorry about that. Intro is still the same elements. And then we have a weird little break. This doesn't sound like Spotless. But then the drop. Really a different melody, but with a lot of the same elements. as you can hear in the intro and in the drop from the original one. Yeah, I had that first version just as a project, and then Martin was like, okay, that's a bit too childish, and give me that laptop, I'm going to change it. And yeah, it's a more mature track. I think it's one of my favorite tracks to play in my sets as well. Need It is pretty cool. If you know my track Need It, it's this one. But the first version, or one of the first versions I played, was like this. Long, I'm going to skip the break a little bit because it's pretty long. Here you can hear the lead melody underneath if you listen closely. It's really hidden there. A different melody. So I had that. I played it in a couple sets, and it was okay. You know, if you sometimes you play. Also a good tip to play tracks, even if you play in somewhere small, or on a wedding, or wherever you play. If you play here on the corner of the street, try to look at the response a little bit, and then again, it depends what you want to do with the track. And if you want it for live sets, try to look at that response. And this was like, okay, it's an okay track, and you don't want to release an okay track. And yeah, it just needed a lot of work, so I put it away for a while. Then I sat with a vocal writer, and I don't know if the vocal's on here.
There was a look in your eye, or was it my reflection? Tell me you're ready.
I went back into that project because we were having a vocal session where you sit with someone who writes vocals and you go through some not finished project. And I found that melody again. This one. That was like hidden underneath the project still, like in the other track. And I was like, that should be the lead. So that became Need It. Yeah, some other examples, like how you can sometimes, you know what melody you want, but you don't know how you want it to sound like, so you just put it on your track in an ugly... So I was like, yeah, I like this melody, but I don't know the sound yet, so I'm just gonna bounce it like that, especially for the drop. Like this is a version I would, I always bounce a lot on MP3, and then you can play it in your car, play it on your phone. Get used to it, and you're gonna have 1,000 versions, and then the end project. So,
Jay, can I interrupt you? We got 10 minutes left. Maybe it's good to try to answer some questions for you, personal, or something about the subject. Does anybody have a question from the audience for Jay about this subject, how to start a track? Yes.
Hi, Jay.
Hi.
I'm a pretty big fan of yours. I watch a lot of your blogs. I know that you have a new studio. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
In the song Stardust, how did you make the ramp up of I want to say the tempo?
Tempo, yeah. I can show you. I'm just gonna take these chords, copy it to a new pattern real quick. Yes, so if I start here. Like if I want to, the way I did it was in Fruity Loops you can automate. It's actually very simple. You can automate the BPM. Right click on the BPM, create automation clip. And then it's set at 128, so you copy that. You copy the value and you put like at the end, where do I want it to end? Oh, that needs to be 128, so it's already at 128, but paste value. And then you just drag this one down. This is an automation clip which like controls that timeline. And I did it in a separate project, so I didn't mess up my original project. So I made that like slow and then it just goes up. Like you can see here, the BPM. You can go up real fast or fast like this. And that's how I started from slow to fast. And what I did was like if I select this and I would export as WAV file, then you bounce that part, and then I use that in the original project. So that was just a WAV file of it going faster. So yeah, that's
great question. Any more questions from the audience for Jay, or was everything clear? Because I didn't understand shit about it, but no. No, it was a great. Do you have any? Because it's about how to start a track. Do you have any tips for the producers? Like, okay, you need to have an idea when you start, or can you also start like empty?
I prefer to start empty. I think that's probably creatively the most fun way to do it, and then just mess around, and then you find something. Hey, this is cool. And then you think, okay, what should it be? But you can also like, hey, I want to make a track that's future house or techno, and then you can do that also. I think it's just more fun to start the other way around, and I feel like it stimulates creativity a bit more. So you do weird stuff you never thought it would work, and it can be the basis of a new song. So.
And you were talking about the music rules.
Yeah.
What's a good way for a producer to find out those rules? Is it like you have to go to school, or can you find it somewhere? Or
YouTube probably has videos. Okay. There's books. My tour manager Gary has this. He also produces. He has this. I don't know how I call that, but this thing on his phone, and it's like an image, and it shows like, hey, this key, these notes, and. Yeah, the circle of fifths.
Ooh, that sounds spacey.
And like he has it on his phone, so when he's in the studio and he's like, yeah, I don't have internet here, but
I know it's off, but it's all right.
And so
I know that a lot of DJs even use that in their sets.
Yeah.
So you have a build-up in your set on the right keys, and it doesn't break the set.
Yeah.
All right, great. Any questions? Because we're almost wrapping it up. There's somebody up there. Oh, that's the young producer guy with his dad. Go to school, boy.
I have a question. How do you make the drops that sounds big and not little, and it's boom?
Yeah, it's important to choose the sounds correctly. Make sure that you choose the right kick. Make sure you use the right bass, and this is very hard to explain because there's not like a knob like that says, oh, now it sounds good, but it's important to just have all the elements work together. So if you have a clap that's on the drop and there's too much bass in the clap, like low frequency, then it interferes with the kick. So you need to EQ the clap, and it needs to sound nice. And if you do that with the bass, and it's just like keep polishing certain elements or changing stuff until it sounds bigger. And there's a lot of ways with rhythm you can make tracks sound more interesting and more grooving, and it's a matter of you feel it as you go, and that's why you can't really explain it. But yeah, I hope I did the best.
And of course, get the spinning bass plug-in makes it easier.
Yeah.
Right? Commercial. No. Any more questions for the audience? That guy filmed the whole.
That's cool.
On his phone. Is your phone already full or not? No? Almost. Oh, cool.
Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
You told about the trick when you render the automation.
Yeah.
But when I do it, and put it back in the project, it don't match with the grid. So it really fucks with the sidechain in the project, if you understand.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's important.
You got any trick on?
Like if I want this part was selected now to speed up. Well, samples are different because samples will stretch out. So that's difficult with samples like this. Like you see now, they're good now again. But if I change the samples are difficult. But for like instruments, it's easier. I don't know if you mean samples or like synths.
No, the MIDI, right?
Just the MIDI, yeah.
If you take that.
What I would do, if in this case, what if I want 4 bars of speeding up, and then 4 bars. What you could do. I need a mouse, but what you could do is just like. You see the sample change now, but that's another thing. What you could do is just like, okay, I need 4 bars to speed up. But then you have those 4 bars, and then you know where's the end exactly. What I would do is just make something behind it, like this, for example. And it doesn't need to be anything. But what I can do is like I take a clap or like something, drum hits. Where are we? Claps. And a little bit later, I make sure that's right on the grid. And then when it speeds up, blah, blah, blah. And because you selected this, you can bounce this, and the clap will be in the exact grid. And then in your project, the wave file, you can make sure the clap is on the grid of that project. Yeah, that's one way how you could do it, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. It's going to be the last one. You can also see Jay play tonight here in the Club Air for spinning sessions. What time are you playing, you know?
Around
Late.
12, I think.
Oh, okay. So check it out. There are a few tickets left for the door tonight. Do you have your own party at ADE as well, right?
No.
No? Not this year?
This year, no.
Oh,
Too busy.
boring. Oh, too busy.
Hey Jay, how are you?
How are you, man?
Good. So, not relating to this, but I was wondering, when are you going to explain Spotless? Because I think you'll get 1 million hits on YouTube.
Sorry, what?
I was like, when are you going to explain Spotless? Your track.
Spotless?
Yeah, because you get 1 million hits on YouTube. Yeah.
On YouTube, yeah.
I think everyone's waiting for that.
Yeah, like some of you know, I do explain tracks on my YouTube channel, and everybody's asking, like him as well, like for where I explain Spotless. But I want to do this together with Martin Garrix, because then we can explain who did what, and it will be a cool episode. But we are both very busy on our schedule. Of course, Martin is crazy busy, and I hope we find some time. Yeah, I'm gonna try, but it's very busy. But there will be probably one day the episode of Martin and me explaining Spotless. It would be pretty cool.
I'm totally going to be in some YouTube.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so too. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a warm applause for the one and only Jay Hardway?
Thank you.